So I can see people are slowly returning from the breakaway sessions. All right. Okay. Thank you so much to everyone. I really do hope that you enjoyed being in the different breakaway sessions, and to the ambassadors who were receiving feedback. You will be making use of the different points that have been shared with you in the different breakaways, and hopefully there's maybe one or two things that you've learned, and maybe that could also help you in terms of working towards your strategy. I also just want to let you know that we are going to take a very short break, starting now at 15:47. For those who will not be stretching or anything like that, you can stay behind. There'll be videos that will be playing. So yeah, Brian, please play us some videos. So we are going for a body break. You can use the time to get maybe a glass of water, stretch a bit because we've been online for a while. Please do not forget to engage and interact with us on the socials, repost some of the things that are happening or some of the takeaways. We are having a 10, please give me a second.
Yeah, we'll break for 10 minutes.
Yes, we are having a 10 minutes break. Thank you, Michael.
insikelelo kum kaloku ungusakhe sakheke masibambane ingomso lele bendinengxubakaxaka ndikakane nesisixaka mlovu ndifunyeno wethu inhliziyo yam ixakene nam ndizakhoba ndixakeke ngawe xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo ndixolile xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo kodwa ndixolele xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo ndixolile xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo kodwa ndixolele xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo ndixolile xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo ndixolile xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo ndixolile xabani lizolo xabani lizolo xabani lizolo kodwa ndixolele.
Opened up my heart for you. I let you in. I gave you all of me, and I hoped you would do the same for me. Maybe I made a big mistake. I should have walked when I saw the first signs. I should have known you would hurt me and make me believe there was hope.
Ubochena bomalume bako thina sizofika silethe ibizo. Ubochena bomalume bako uthimba lami sizohlangana esigcawini base kusha neshindini masifika kusibukidini. Awuyelele mntana umuntu angazi ukuthi mina bengihlaleleni engakuthandi. Awuyelele mntana umuntu angazi ukuthi mina bengihlaleleni engakushaya. Obekebele akalale sezulu akalale ngenqe. Obekebele mama akalale sezulu akalale ngenqe. Lona nyamkata cela balobona bahlehle. Lona nyamkata cela balobona badeke. Yelelelelelele ube yelelelelelele yelelelelelele ube yelelelelelele. Lo manja edaliwa ngeke ngikushiye zofaslahla dansi twalata mayibona wena dansi twalata ay ay sebethelenge nyongeka bafana esiphandleka abuliwa masango ngena sebukini la obekepele akalale sethuno kalalenge obekepele mama akalale sethuno kalalenge lona nyamthatha nalabona bahleli lona nyamthatha nalabona badeke yelelelelelele ube yelelelelelele yelelelelelele ube yelelelelelele. Yeah, man.
Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. Best thing in the world. Never change for anybody else. In a brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls. The best thing in the world. I never trade you for anybody else singing.
She says she really grew up poor like me. Don't believe in nothing but the Almighty. Just a little jeans and a pure whitey. She never dreamed forever be nobody wifey. Yeah. She well, I mean, a pretty but your heart is a mess. Play you like a villain cause she caught in a way. Tonight I am walking away. 9 to 5 mine and
Welcome back, everybody. We are, I hope you had a very, very, very good break. An insightful breakout room session. In our group, we definitely had lots to say. Everyone was, very, very, very engaging, and it's been very exciting to have everyone discuss the project that we've been working on for so long. I'd just like to welcome everyone back into the space. We are, so we have Saneli Siwe in the chat box. Please continue interacting with us and engaging on the chat box. Share your reactions with the reaction buttons. Remember to tag us in your social media posts at NYRI_SA. We are now going to move into our Amplifying Youth Voices session. This is a powerful energy for change. And to talk to us about this, we have Miko and Simongile, who come from a wealth of experience around how to impact through stories and profiling of one's voice. I'd like to hand over the space to them if they are ready.
Hi, everyone. Okay. So, hi, everyone. My name is Mishoma Tebula, and I'm joined by one half of the podcasts, Sisterhood of the Traveling Go, Sinesipo. She's over here. So Sim is not the one who will be presenting with me. It's Sinesipo. Sniper, do you want to hi?
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Nesipo, and I will be presenting with Misho today. Thanks to the DJ for the amazing music. That was really great. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. And yeah, we're ready to get the show on the road. Misho, are you able to share from your end?
Yes, I'm going to share just now. Okay. Let me know.
Are you able to go on presenter mode from there?
Where is it?
That play button up there.
Where is it?
That's it. That's the one. Unless it's gonna play manually, that would be a mess. That
What is
mango
it?
pie recipe looks amazing though.
The what?
The mango pie recipe.
Okay. So hi guys. We are the Sisterhood of the Traveling Goer. So we have a podcast that we founded in 2018. Since then it's sort of developed, into a platform where the young people being Sniper and I, and a few guests here and there when we have the chance, speaking about how we navigate adulthood and just, reflecting with so many others in the country and, around, the continent and sometimes even overseas. So for those who may not know, umgo is defined as the process of going through things or going through something, which is something we all know too well. That's why we're here. That's why we have ambassadors. That's why we are having these dialogues, because we are going through things from a social perspective, environmental perspective, political perspective, with ourselves, in our interpersonal relationships, etc. So I think the best thing that has come out of this sort of platform that we've been offered or created was that we don't only walk this, or we don't navigate this journey just as the two of us. We realize that we actually have created, or we've formed a community that we are able to navigate life with. So for us, this podcast is a knowledge base, where we share, our personal stories, how we are working through them, as we are doing that work. So sometimes we can share in one episode about something and how we work through it. And then like 3 episodes later, we come back and we're like, actually, I just saw a different perspective. Something else happened. And yes, we pride ourselves in, being able to share raw and relatable experiences in the language of our words, empowering ourselves and our community, with language to express themselves within the sisterhood. So we have established ourselves as a voice that listens and learns. If you want to subscribe, you can check us out on some of these platforms. Our podcast, Spotify, it's free. SoundCloud, YouTube, we're there as well, at Esmgoa. Yes, us over here, Sniper and I. And so, Sniper, do you want to take us through what we're going to cover?
Great, thank you, Misho, for that. So today we're going to be speaking about transformative storytelling and basically how to storytell or create stories, preserve them, as well as make them transferable to a certain degree. So we're going to start with story construction. So what is your story, and have you ever told a story? I feel every single person has told a story and is a storyteller just by virtue of existing and having opened your mouth or thought of something or dreamt of something or tweeted something or posted something on Facebook. You've created and shared a story. Misha, you can go to the next slide.
I just saw someone subscribe. Shout out to you.
So I really like this quote. that says you either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. I think this basically describes how, by telling these transformative stories, we walk towards ourselves. And by ignoring the need to do so, we constantly lead a life where we are trying to understand things from a standpoint that isn't as rooted in us, or the pain points that we have, or what is wrong that we have identified in the world or within ourselves. So it is by walking inside of these stories that we have that we enable ourselves to transform and others to transform. Next slide, Misho. I wish we had a click up. It's okay. So telling transformative stories, I feel the word transformative can often feel very intimidating. It's quite a big word. It makes it feel like this is something that has to have a level of theory attached to it at all times, where I feel that often we find that we've been practicing for so long. So we've been doing the transformative storytelling without actually being fully aware of it. And then when we discover the theory, it makes it easier for us to understand what we've been doing for so long, but also it makes it easier for us to continue to do what we're doing in a constructive way. Misha, are you still sharing your screen?
I'm back, y'all. This
Sorry about load shedding. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yes.
Would you like me to share, Misho? Are you having issues with load shedding or something? Sorry about that. Let me try take over. I have stolen the screen. Can you guys see?
Yeah.
All right, great. So how do we speak about the things that make us stutter, right? Because when you say transformative, you think of things that are attached to bringing some level of change. And it's always so difficult because at times you think, who am I to think that sharing this might be able to change anything in my life or anyone else's life? But as with any story, before we even find the words, it begins with a feeling. And I don't know, personally, I feel whenever I've ever ignored a strong feeling about something, I've always regretted it in the long run. So I think telling transformative stories begins with acknowledging the strong feelings or strong pull we have towards something. And once we acknowledge those feelings, it becomes easier to think about those things, which makes it easier for us to actually document those things, whether we write or we speak. And then it makes it easier for us to action because all of a sudden we actually have the language to acknowledge the issue or the pain points that we want to change and deal with. So it's weird to actually say that any amount of change always starts with acknowledging a feeling, because for the longest of times we've been told that our feelings have been reduced to nothingness, or we've been conditioned to escape them. So we've found through the process that we've gone through that any story that is able to bring about some level of change, even in the smallest of ways, always begins with acknowledging a feeling. So yeah, don't silence yourself. Misho?
Um, Thank you all very much. Crafting authentic stories. Nobody wants Pinocchio's nose. The reason why we say this is because there is no need for us to, if a story is meant to be transformative, it has to be real, not fiction, not you retelling someone else's story. I mean, there is telling someone else's story on their behalf, but doing it in a way that still honors them, But at the moment, you know, when we talk about speaking about our own stories, it can be real. It has to be real, rather, for it to be transformative and authentic. It also needs to be. It also doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to mean that you have to overshare. I think a lot of the times when people hear or are told to share their stories, we then tend to sort of hesitate almost instantly because we're like, oh no, you know, I don't want to share a big part of my life or certain parts of my life for a number of reasons. Primary, obviously, being shame, and then, you know, for other reasons, you're shy, or you feel like you will be overexposed. There is a way to do it, you know, where you can still preserve your dignity and your privacy. I mean, think about how some of the best stories are basically metaphors or idioms, or for people who read, you know, religious books, parables, without them really going into full detail, but getting that story through. So, you know, and with the last point, it says finding your line. You know, I think as we are telling, I personally feel as though I'm going to make an example. I'll be often making examples of sort of our work within the platform that we have. Is that, you know, in the beginning, I can definitely say I held back a whole lot, because I just didn't know at the time what was sort of, you know, what was out of line and what was not out of line, and also what would make me feel overexposed and what wouldn't. And I think as I was going, and because of the way, you know, because we had to be sort of speaking often and open often, it had me sort of thinking about, okay, I don't actually have to tell people my entire life story, but I can also use this platform as a means to share in a way that honors me, honors the people who are listening to me, but also can act as um, as a healing mechanism for me, or a mechanism that can bring forth action, in you know, the instance of you know, what we're talking about, the dialogue. And so yes, you can have, you know, you can tell your story without it being, you know, out of line, or, you know, without being able to protect yourself and protect others. But first and foremost, be authentic, be authentic, be authentic, be real. You know, don't censor yourself in a negative way, obviously. Be real and share as much as you can. Oh, I was switching to next. I forgot it's not me anymore.
So I think to add on to what Misha was saying about protecting yourself and your own dignity and other people's dignity, the danger of not being authentic is that you end up telling someone else's story in a way that creates experiences of them that other people will witness that they haven't been a part of. And what that danger does is that you now create an entirely new narrative for someone else, which they are not responsible for. And what that does is that it robs someone else the opportunity to transform themselves or the issues that they have within their own communities, because now the idea of who they are and what their issues might be is completely distorted. So that's why it's so important that we're always authentic in the stories that we tell, because you don't necessarily have to have the story that will garner the most pity. You don't have to have the story that will make people the most angry. You can literally tell your own story, and there can still be an audience for it that has a need to change, that will be affected by what you have to share, and that will be able to transform because of what you shared. And sometimes that audience can literally even just be yourself. So yeah, speaking about audience, we're now moving on to the audience consideration part of things, because if you're telling a story, there's always an audience. And that audience doesn't necessarily have to be the entire world. It can literally just be you. It can just be a friend. It can just be your family if you feel that's where you need transformation the most. Misha, you can take over this one.
Yeah. So I just have a brief list of who we are talking to or who needs to hear what you have to share. In the context of the NYD and the NYRI project, the people that need to hear our stories are vulnerable youth and the people that do need that transformation. But not just that, these stories um, begin within our peer groups as well. I think for me, I can make an example. What has empowered me a lot in terms of sharing has been sitting with my friends and, us having, I don't know, sitting somewhere and just chatting. I think that has empowered me a great deal because that's where I get to test out my story and, oh, okay, this is the reaction I'm getting, cool. Or my friends are like, I actually really needed to hear that. You should put that out there, for others to hear as well. As well as institutions, the institutions that we are appealing to. Obviously, we're not talking just to ourselves. We want to take our work and our stories out there so that we can achieve the change that we need, so that we can build resilience and prevent violence further. So these institutions need to hear our story. We cannot stop whether or not they're effective. We cannot stop telling our stories. They must hear them one way or the other. And then most importantly, also yourself. I think, and I'm hoping that the ambassadors do also see, you know, or do also feel as though more than anything, this is for them. This is for you. This is also something that will edify you. This is something that will, that will bring change for you as well. I don't think that a lot of the ambassadors coming in will be the same when they leave. And so you need to tell these stories for yourself, whether it's to receive closure, whether it's to, to gain courage, whether it's to, you want to put yourself out there, you're tired of hiding. You need to hear that story as well. You need to tell your story too. So yes, audience is important. Consider your audience, honor your audience as well. We are firm believers we talk about it a lot. I'm sure even when we had the introduction session a couple of weeks back, we spoke a lot about, sort of honoring ourselves and honoring our audiences. We cannot claim that we want to bring change, and then we, in the things that we say and the stories that we share with our audiences, we are violating them. We are being violent towards them. We are disregarding them, which is what we see often in a lot of these like platforms, especially the ones that are more cloud focused. And I think that's a very important thing that you need to, or that we need to sort of internalize, and that we are glad we have internalized, is that actually numbers don't matter. What matters is the community that we share our stories with, whether it's a vulnerable youth, our peers, the institutions, the people who need the transformation that we're talking about. Those are the people that matter, not not numbers or being viral or anything like that. Yes, it's nice because, you get to spread your message across even further. But at the end of the day, put your community first. Yes, I see that comment, community first always. Put yourselves and your community first forward. Yeah.
Great. I think we've actually covered this slide, but this speaks to why do people need to hear what you have to say or what you need to share? Because I think all of this, the one thing that differentiates transformative story from any other story is the fact that it's very need-based. You're not telling the story for the sake of telling the story. And even before you know why you need to, there's that strong feeling of push that is telling you that you need to. And one of the most important things as to why we need to tell these stories is because transformation can't exist in isolation. As much as we can change ourselves from what we learn, we have very limited opportunities to exercise the new things or ways of doing that we've picked up if we're the only ones that are doing the changing. So it's important to bring others along with you so that there's a bigger benefit for society. And this is why we feel it's so important to speak or to write or to create in whatever way that you can tell your story or a story that you feel can transform others or yourself or your community. So the next segment is story management and preservation, because there's a level of needing to be intentional once you actually identify that the story you've been sharing is effective in a way that brings about change or that you would like it to be. So, how to develop stories. Broken telephone isn't necessarily always bad. Just like us, our stories do not always remain the same. So the way I told the story 5 years ago doesn't mean that it has to be the same way right now. Just as we keep growing, as we gain new information or get new life experiences, our stories also have the opportunity to do so. And the stories we tell our communities also have the opportunity to do so, because they need to evolve as we evolve. And as we are the narrators or owners of these stories, as we grow, they have to grow with us. Because sticking or staying with the same story, you run the risk of no longer being relevant or having elements of the story that can teach something or continue to change the environment that you find yourself in within a particular moment. So as much as the principles of a story may remain the same, if you have elected that, you know what, I am interested in my womanhood and I would like to speak about that over the next over the years, or I'd like to speak about that as a central topic in my life or a part of telling my story to empower other women as they deal with the same things that I'm dealing with. That doesn't mean that you're now confined to a box of only approaching womanhood from one angle, because as you grow as a woman, you come into different phases in your life and you interact with different things that call for a level of change in how you present your story. So a lot of people tend to fear being a hypocrite or perceived as one. But the thing about life is that it changes so rapidly that if at the core of responsibility for ourselves and our communities, I don't think that we can actually be wrong, or be wrong, or with be malicious. Let me not say wrong, because we can be wrong. And as we gain more information, we see better ways of doing things. But I don't think that you can credit a level of malice to how you share your story if it's rooted in truth. And I don't think that there can be a level of malice from how your story develops if you grow to contradict certain beliefs that you once had and amplified, if you now come across new information that helps you change the way you tell your story and the story that you tell. So it's very important to not make yourself be stuck in a box because you fear that people might think you have now moved from the story you introduced in the beginning. Because the biggest thing about transformation is that we are constantly changing as we're learning. Misha, oh, this did not update. Sorry about that. Do you want to grab this one, Misha, still? Can you hear me?
You know, I'm busy talking to myself.
Sorry.
Do you want me to share on my side or?
Yeah, because it seems like
there. All right, all right.
Or I can. I'll share.
Oh, okay. You'll share it over there. Great.
Can you see?
So, yes, I can see.
Just moving to the side. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. Let me see what happens when I share it like this.
Yeah.
The internet said, I am going to misbehave. Okay, there you go.
So I hope you guys can appreciate the running theme for this slide. So how to preserve stories over time. Preserves, we have preserves over here. So the core essence, the core essence as we develop will remain. The core essence of our stories and who we are will always remain. But what adds more flavor, but as you know, as you add more flavors, it grows into something else. Those flavors can be life experiences, can be speaking to our communities, can be speaking to our peers, can be in sharing our stories, in fact. And what we get out of that adds even more flavor and more of a better essence to our stories, and they become different. And that's how our stories can evolve, like Sniper was speaking about in the previous slide, that in order to transform, we must also evolve. Our stories must also evolve. And so this kind of speaks to that as well, that, as we are living our daily lives and reflecting and, interacting and, fighting and activating and all these things. These things are what add or what give the story, that bigger essence. So one of the ways in which we are able to preserve our story, when you put it in a jar and you keep it for however long in your preservation station or your fermentation station, I think has been, and I think we all relate or all use these platforms as technology. Technology has enabled us to preserve our stories. I mean, previously, a lot of us, I definitely speak for myself in my sort of family situation. I learned a lot of my family history through oral history. So every year, the same event before we eat, which is not always the best because it's always hard and like you're hungry. But they tell us the story about our family. And what's happened now is that we've been able to record that and we're able to play that back now. I mean, even though it's still sort of told orally, but technology has enabled us to be able to preserve our stories, to protect our stories, to not lose the stories. Social media has made that even, or the internet has made that even more sort of powerful, mostly obviously if you use it well. So basically, I mean, you guys know there's Facebook. We've been telling stories, even the ones where we're typing funny back then, when we were much younger. Those are stories that we're telling, and they are being preserved because you know how the internet is. Once it's in the internet, it's out here, which is why I've said there is no best before date once you have put the story out there. And I think a lot of people find that very daunting, right? I think for a lot of people, it's like, oh my God, um, I'm putting myself out there for everyone to hear, not just the people sort of in my immediate circle, my friends, my family, but every single person. And that is a very tough sort of thing to grapple with. I can definitely sort of speak on that because I'm also just very introverted, very much into my own sort of space, not very much liking to be out there. But at the end of the day, you have to ground yourself, and almost chase away those fears and those thoughts through, affirming yourself, affirming yourself by saying, you know what, for as long as I am following sort of these guidelines that we've sort of given you, where I'm honoring myself, where I'm honoring the people I'm telling the story to, I actually don't mind that there's no best before date. My story can be out there for as long as possible. And I think it adds on to that preservation, because you'll have one story. So, I mean, maybe some of the things we were saying when we first started the podcast in 2018, and maybe we revisit a topic this year, it could be completely different. And that really is the beauty of it all. Because at the end of the day, like Sniper said, it just shows that we evolve as life goes, that the core essence, we are still very much there. We are still very much those people. But we've there's been some other stuff added, the bitter or the sweet or the spicy in the case of pickles or other preserves. They are what add that bit of difference, but it's still tasty. It's still a good story. It's still a story that should be out there for others to hear and to see, and for you to also go back to and reflect on as well. So yeah, next slide, please.
Great. So measuring story effectiveness is very important if the story being told is not just for personal purposes, right? So we need to get an understanding that, okay, did this reach the intended audience in the way that I wanted it to reach the audience? But at the same time, need to be fully aware of the fact that one, as a person or as an organization, you might feel that you've identified an issue or pain point that needs to change, and you address an audience with the idea that you have in mind of how you can change this. And when the audience meets this idea of yours, they might have a different idea in terms of their own diagnosis of their issue and their own solutions of their issue. So your story also, as much as it doesn't expire, it also always needs to remain flexible so that it can actually change, not necessarily saying we should always be bullied by someone else to change our story, but that if our story is truly rooted in being helpful, it is then always flexible to the needs of a community or of a group of people in the way that that community understands their issues, as that's the most helpful way when we're being truly honest and authentic. So it's not about just about it reaching your audience, but how it reaches your audience and how your audience receives and reacts to your story. So can you transfer your story, and can you constantly transform your story to ensure that at its core, it's always helpful? So has it done what you wanted it to do, which is being helpful, being able to influence or inspire change, and also being relevant and authentic to the cause that it has? And in acknowledging or identifying these things, would you be able to tell the story again? Is the story sustainable? Does it have legs? Can it grow in different ways as I grow or as my community grows? If it doesn't, is it something that I can look back on and see where I can improve certain things? Maybe I used the wrong platform to share the story. Maybe the people that need the story actually exist elsewhere, and I hadn't considered that before. For instance, if you are not necessarily a person who enjoys using their words, right? You are more suited to share your story if you are taking pictures or drawing on a different platform that is more visual than you would be on a platform that uses words, let's say like a blog post. So you might find that actually a Tumblr, or if you are a video like person, TikTok is way better for you, and you would reach the audience there, as that's where people who are more visual would be. So things like that, which we're going to have a few workshops where we speak more directly about the importance of placing your story on the right platforms so that it can be transferred correctly. But yeah, there's many factors in terms of evaluating the story that you've shared and how you can make it more sustainable and transferable. So yeah, in essence, I think to conclude, we saw the part of how we need to have a strong call to action for everyone who was listening here today, and we actually felt that the idea of telling people how to begin or what to do would actually be undermining the work that people are already doing when it comes to storytelling. So I think the most important thing that we can actually say is that we should all continue. We should all continue to speak, or we should all continue to tell these stories that we have been telling in different ways, so that they can continue to transform us, so that we can be better within society, but so that also once we feel that there's a level of understanding of the stories that we have to share, we can help others transform and our communities transform. So instead of telling people to begin or to start, I think the takeaway from today that I hope everyone will have is that we should all continue, and we should all continue to try and learn how to share these stories a bit better, so that they can get to what we want to achieve in the most effective and helpful ways. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to us today. I don't know if we're taking questions or having a feedback session. You guys will let me know, but we're happy to stay on for a bit to do that if there's still time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'll look through the comments and respond as well.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for your key insights into sharing your story. And I highly encourage each and every one of you to do that, do exactly that, to share your story with the world. I would like to just say, we're not going to be able to take any questions at this point in time, but please, if you do have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. Perhaps one of the two presenters can respond to the questions in the chat box. And of course, Sanali Siwe is there in the chat box to facilitate and assist as you need. Right now, we are going to move into the next space, which is the message of activism. This will be done by Tato, and I will hand over to her now.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I think as we step into messages of activism, I just want to start by saying we are not makers of history, we are made by history. These are words that were spoken by Martin Luther King. And I think why I'm bringing up these words is because we are a fortunate generation, because we come from a country with such a rich history of activism. So without any further ado, you will be seeing videos with messages of activism from Farai and Itumeleng Mpure from Sai, and then Farai Mubaiwa, who is from Yes.
Dear Ambassadors, I'd like to congratulate you on the journey you've embarked on. As you work on your actions of impact for building a resilient tomorrow, I encourage you to claim your seat on the table and be at the center of change. At Youth at SIRE, we reiterate that youth are leading. Young people are not just leaders of tomorrow, but are leaders of today. Take every opportunity to capacitate yourself, build networks, and tap into existing ones in the bid to make meaningful contributions towards a resilient tomorrow.
Greetings to the ambassadors. I trust that you're all well. My name is Farai Mubaiwa, and I am the co-founder of the Africa Matters Initiative. And greetings to the ambassadors. I trust that you're all well. My name is Farai Mubaiwa, and I am the co-founder of the Africa Matters Initiative and the Chief Partnerships.
We are just
Greetings to the
sorting out.
ambassadors. I trust that you're all well. My name is Farai Mubaiwa, and I am the co-founder of the Africa Matters Initiative.
Fatima, a suggestion, let's play this tomorrow. Tato?
Yes. Okay, so if you're playing this tomorrow, I will just read the next. Sorry about that, comrades. Seems like we have a bit of technical problems, but be sure to catch the video from Farai tomorrow on day 2 of our National Youth Dialogue. So I will be reading a message from Alan Busak, who has shared a very heartwarming message with the NYRI Ambassadors. Okay. What will our country look like in the next 30 years? What will our beautiful South Africa look like when today we have a majority of young people that feel as they have a voice that is not heard, that feel as if they are separated and not included in political and societal processes, that feel disfranchised, that feel protected and unprovided for, that feel stuck in a position of waiting to see what happens next. These are some of the challenges among many others that young people are faced with today, and which continue to impede on their ability to reach their true potential and take their rightful place in society. But a life without challenges is a life robbed of opportunity. I have an unshakable belief that young people have the ability to succeed and thrive despite their challenges. Inside of all of us exists an almighty flame that is there despite of what happens around us, despite our circumstances. And when the flame is ignited and given the opportunity to be used, beautiful things can happen. Now that you have found your flame that burns inside you, please do not keep it to yourself. There are many young people whose flames are burning low, whose flames are starting to die down because they are losing hope and do not see a future ahead of them. Equipped with what you have experienced and armored with your knowledge, expertise, and desire, go out and find those young people and ignite their flames. Pass on and instill in others what is in you. It means nothing if what we have is kept secretly to ourselves, but can make a significant difference when we pass it on to others. So what will our country look like in the next 30 years? Our beautiful South Africa. Because of you, it can be a place where young people's voices are heard and respected, where young people are considered crucial in political and societal processes, where young people are not disenfranchised, but recognized and practice their rights as citizens of South Africa, where young people are protected and acknowledged as key partners in our country's future, holistic growth and success, where young people are no longer waiting in worldhood, but are taking actions and being provided the opportunities and resources to do so. May your flame continue to burn bright for you and for all around you. So that was a message of activism from Alan Busak. Sure. I really hope that we are all taking one or more things that Alan has shared in his message of activism. I think that really is inspiring, and I think it is also just a reminder to us as ambassadors to say it does not end here, but we have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that we're creating a ripple effect with the tools and the knowledge that we have gathered throughout the program. So now I want to introduce to you our wonderful audience, Khomotso Mwalusi, who is from the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. I really just want to take a moment to say thank you to Khomotso, who has devoted time to be with us as ambassadors throughout the program and to offer us support in formulating our presentations and just being that contact person between the young people and the department itself. It does not go unnoticed, and we wish to see more people in power listening to voices of young people. Khomotso, you can take it away.
All right. Thank you, Tato. Much appreciated. Just as a start, let me apologize. I'm not going to put on the video. I was in an Uber to fetch my kids from school, but because I didn't want to mess up, we're just stopping by the side of the road so that I could do this. All right. So today has been exciting. The day has finally arrived. And I must say, some of your presentations to hear from you how you are seeing the social issues that are in your lives and also your power in how to respond to them. I think in the meetings I've been with you, I'm quite a humorous person. So the humor in the resilience this week is I have had to push through the resilience in the worst ways. Anything and everything that could go wrong has been going wrong for me from Monday till today. But I've been taught in life that in spite of whatever storms you're in, even in the eye of the tornado, what you do is pitch up. So I am here and I am pitching up because, in the same way I could feel my world stopped this week, young people across our country are facing worse. Some of them, it is their daily reality with no light in sight. So, so I just laughed that the resilience had to be thrown back at me so that it wasn't just a word I was saying or a speech I was making, but knowing that even in the moment, it is my own resilience that I have to push through to do this. Thank you. So on to the formalities. So my name is Khomotso Malakai Mwalusi. I'm a 41-year-old woman, no more young lady these days. I'm a mother of two. And, when I was listening to the ladies talking about the podcasts and telling your story, you will ask yourself why that is the way I introduce myself. But the more we go through and traverse this life, you learn the things that are important. So I always say to people, I introduce the most important parts of myself before I get onto the formalities. I am representing the Department of Women, Youth, Persons with Disabilities, which is where I have been working for the past 10 years. Prior to that, I had been in the NGO sector, joined it quite by chance after going through depression and a bit of a suicidal period. I dropped out of university and life just seemed bleak, and this is what I love about this program, and this is why for me it is incredibly inspiring and well-rooted, because some of us are living testimony that sometimes fighting through is the only thing that you can, and then how in working, that is how you understand. So I worked in NGOs, and I went to NGOs because my mother wanted to get me out of this dark mood, and she introduced me to a bunch of ladies who were working in the community. And forgive my storytelling, but I think it is relevant to say, you know what, this child cannot be sitting there. I know you guys are a church group and you're doing things in the community. Please work with her. Through the eyes of these women, I discovered something called the Young Women's Christian Association, which was not just a small thing that was there, and welcome in the Free State, which is my home base. But from there, I can literally tell you, from 2001 to now, it has been a journey. But take you back to the resilience. As you will know, the suicidal thoughts, depression, it's not something that goes away, but you learn with time. It is something that you fight through consciously. Sometimes you fake it, but you fight through, because we are change agents. There are so many things that are possible. I want to just take into a few years after I joined this NGO, which then turned out to be a global NGO. I went from going around Welkom and Free State to working with other provinces, to working onto the continent. And for me, it has always been so amazing that starting with small projects in the community is what actually brought me to national level, because that is what we're doing. There was moral regeneration programs. There were, what can we do with young people in the community? So everything that you're going through, that comes, that fails, it all builds up to something. My mother was reminding me the other day that, you know, you did your 15 years of NGOs and you said you're giving 10 years to government. What is next? And what I've learned is, along the journey, everything matters. But now back to the serious stuff. The Department of Women, Youth, Persons with Disability is located in the presidency. Unlike many other departments, this is not a department that is an implementing department. It is a department that is tasked to facilitate, coordinate, monitor, and evaluate other departments and other sectors in catering to the needs of women, young people, and persons with disability. I'm giving you the historical background so that you know where it comes from. In 96, President Mandela had these 4 desks at in his presidential office. It was the desk on the status of women, one on the status of children, on the rights of children, youth, and of course, disability. And over time, up until 2014, that's when it then, 2011, that is when it became a department. Now, one would have thought by doing that, we are moving a bit more forward. And as somebody who has dealt with this department, both from the level of a citizen and NGOs, and then now being inside, sometimes I wonder if having a department was the way to go. You know, when you're on the ground, and this is what I've loved in the time that I have engaged with yourselves and some of your groups, is there's something in youth, there's the fire in youth where things are so possible. And without putting a damper, I must say, for you, in the 10 years, one of my key frustrations is how, when we were out of government and we're in civil society, doing things seems more possible, right? And because when you're on the ground, doing the thing goes before you have the budget, whereas the system of governance, which, while you're talking structural education and other things, the structural history of our governance is something that we also need to engage on. So back to what the department is and what it is tasked with. So we are tasked with ensuring that these groups realize their full potential. And as I speak to you, I'll speak as the department and as an individual. For me, the mandate of this department is a transformative agenda, but that's only if we choose to. Because too many times when people talk about women, youth, persons with disabilities, and children, we react from a point of their vulnerability. So how can we help them? Whereas if we change our mindset to saying, how do we realize the full potential of these people, which is, if we're looking at youth, how do we fully engage in and use the energy, the creativity, and the I don't want to say enthusiasm, but the fire that comes with youth, so that we can transform our society. And unfortunately, sometimes, and I think when people have not been on both, that is something that is lost a bit. So the work of the department is cross-cutting in nature. So we work across government, private sector, development partners, business, and civil society organization. Now, you must know where civil society organizations are located. They are the foot soldiers. They are on the ground. They're in the community. They're the people with a full understanding and appreciation of what the problems on the ground are. Whereas where we are setting policy. And I just want to give a bit of a lesson on what I've learned policy to be. So policy is like driving on the highway. Somebody needs to regulate the allowable speed on this tarmac. And the allowable speed is 120. Now, you could be driving at 120 or 110 or 80, depending on the vehicle, on your temperament, on who, but that system exists to regulate. And that is what policy is. Policy is not a panacea. Policy is not a solver of everything. It is something that regulates, and then it is us on the ground who implement. And when we implement, whether the policy is 100% or not, it is us that give it life and give it meaning and give it direction. So the core priorities remain the socio-economic, because we cannot deny the realities of South Africa. The redress that needs to happen, the fact that we are such an unequal society. So in our priorities, it remains the socio-economic empowerment of women, youth, and mainstreaming disability rights. And of course, responding to the disproportionate effect of inequality on these sectors. But of course, each sector has got its own issues, right? So in recent engagements with youth, one of the things we keep hearing is the fears and the anxiety around the shrinking economy, the inability to access job opportunities. And sometimes, you know, people are not just struggling with accessing job opportunities. People are struggling with accessing a meal. They're accessing school. Some of us, parents of children with disability, we wait up to 4, 5, 6 years to even get entry into spaces. You know, so we are sitting here almost, as Mr. Busak is saying, we are raising a generation of youth who are fast losing faith, which is why the NYRI is such an important program, because it takes us back to the personal and building the personal development of the people who need to be change agents. Because change agent is not just having an idea and starting something, but you have to have the willpower to work through all of the obstacles that you will run through. Because just because you want to solve social justice in your community does not mean that all the elements will always be adequately responsive or supportive. So this department is located in a space where it is meant to be a central part of government, which brings in all of the programs, the strategies, the policies, and then ensures that all of those, as the implementing agents, then understand that they mainstream and they think about these sectors and what some of the things they are putting forward means to those sectors. So our work is around promoting disability rights, youth empowerment, and it intends to ensure representation of these sectors, which ironically enough with the youth, I didn't understand in 2001, I don't understand it now, why they are called the vulnerable groups or the forgotten sector, when our census every 10 years reminds us that the youth are the majority. They're 70% of our population. And out of that 70%, the majority are young women. Yet even in the policies and some of the things we do have for young people, that is something that seems to fall out, right? So our job as a department is to facilitate the access and the involvement of these sectors in decision-making bodies, budgeting decisions, and also when you talk about plans around participation in the economy, right? And policy decision and direction. We do this work by working through what we call machineries. And how the machineries work is you have this body that meets on a quarterly basis. And this is something that was brought in by Parliament as early as 2009. You know, remember we have a government that is supposed to be speaking to the people. And how the structure was initially launched was you would have a body that has members of government, parliament, community leaders, local governments, faith-based organization, traditional leaders, traditional healers, people in society. So this one machinery is supposed to be a microcosm of society, so that as they come here, and these people that come through to this machinery are people who are activists. And I don't know if you recall one of the groups I was explaining that a key activist is somebody who has a constituency, because as you go into these platforms, the tacit understanding is you go back with that information and plow back that information so that more people could get this information and empowerment, right? As a department, we also actively seek out partnerships, hence the partnership we have with somebody like GIZ or University South Africa, who we work towards a common goal to ensure that these sectors are getting programs that respond to them and empower them, right? We also recognize the work being done by civil society in these areas. And working with the civil society, we are there to learn and adapt what we consult, because civil society has the lived experience of what we try to correct with policy and legislation, right? Our role in policy formulation, research, and monitoring, it allows for us to inject our research into policy priorities and programs, which then advocates for the rights and mainstreams these across all of government. So when we look specifically at the youth, one of the things that have gone, that we work through is the National Youth Policy. And why we had to have a policy is you needed a vehicle where all stakeholders enter through it in order to respond and prioritize, because as you well know, we have so many problems in our country, but if we don't prioritize, we are going to be running helter-skelter everywhere and nowhere, right? So the National Youth Policy, which seeks to articulate youth development imperatives and related indicators so that everybody knows, has a charting path which they can go to do the empowerment. And of course, the youth policy provides guidance to youth development stakeholders, to youth themselves, but also youth development enablers. You see, I loved it earlier when Palisa was talking about nothing about us without us, which is a disability sector a slogan. But what it also means, as you're saying, nothing about us without us, it also recognizes that you need other people. So if you're trying to enter the economy, you need the people who run the economy to be working with you, because you're not going to move forward in approaching that in a fighting manner, or just we need to find middle grounds on how to work. So the youth development unit in the department seeks, of course, to then promote the development and empowerment of young women by reviewing legislative framework, policies, and other interventions to advance youth rights. And of course, we do it in medium term, because you have to cluster timelines of when you seek to achieve some of these things. And of course, at the basis of this is we all endeavor to have a society where individuals, they have the agency of self-actualization. And that may sound like empty words, but what that means with this program is we're reminding you that you are the one with the ability to make the change and to drive the change. Ours is supposed to come and support how that change is then facilitated. Shh. I'm working, please walk away. Please, sorry for that, kids, sorry. And just as I wrap up, I will go, I'm mixing a bit of the personal and the work. So here we're speaking to social change. And at the basis of social change is what is in this program, which to many other people would just be soft skills. But whether you're talking a CEO, a driver, a head of a church, it is those soft skills that change, that move the change you want, because that is speaking to shifting attitudes, values, and action. Without having a value base, you're not going to move forward, you know? And of course, then together we could then create safer, healthier future for you, your relationships, your community, and your word. And you will hear as I speak, I'm going back to elements that you've already identified in the NYRI framework around understanding from that which has the most proximity to you to that with the furthest. So just in wrapping up, I will just remind you of the things that have been put through, which is you must know your power. Your power is valuable and it is influential. But as you move as a change agent, it's a balancing act that you have to go. So you as a young person are in a key position to reach your peers with information and impact their lives directly. But as much as you're then engaging your peers and building networks, it is also imperative that you partner with other stakeholders, supportive adults, supportive organizations, CSOs, civil society organization. If you're a faith person, faith-based organization, change and radical change happens across the board, never just politically, never just government. It happens where you are and where you can impact. Because change happens when you are coming across with an intervention that connects with your community. And once you have that basis, it is there where you go and you seek out the resources. The resources will follow a good idea, but a good idea also then needs to have buy-in from those that you seek to make the change for. And just last 2 points for you specifically as young people. Never be afraid to use your voice and use your creativity. But in using your creativity, remember, you use your creativity for the specific skill that you have, but also by understanding that you can build on the diverse strengths of everybody around you, and that everybody brings something valuable to the table. So when you think about your interests and skills, use those to the best of your ability. If yours is a voice, a verbal voice, use that. If yours is a pen, use that. If yours is physical strength, use that and work on that. And just as a closing thing to say, you know, on this process, and I'm sure you've learned as groups and presenting to each other, is all of this comes with a lot of criticism and almost pushback. And pushback and criticism are very serious stuff, and you must take it serious. But as a change agent, what you cannot do is to take it personal. Because if you take it serious, you are going to learn from it, and you're going to grow, and you're going to learn how to move it forward. But if you take it personal, as we would say, in other words, you would be catching feelings and not moving. So my role here and our role as the department is to be the vehicle through which your ideas will be carried to other partners. It is to do what we've been doing over the past few weeks, which is to engage with your group, help you hone what it is that you require, but not be your voice. Ours is to hone your product so that you can then move it to the right people. And that is what we are committing to in this. And I think just as I wrap up, this is a great program. I actually wish this is a program which could be started even at a younger age, you know, with where we are as a country. You almost wish some of this resilience can start being built as early as high school, because our young people go through the most. You go through the most, you see the worst. And the sooner we can build on this resilience, we need to just show you the light of how you come through and you can use that power. So thank you. I look forward to tomorrow's presentation. I look forward to engaging with you. I've seen a few friend requests on my timeline. I will be accepting, but change is something we do together, and it is not immediate. You know, there are some of the things that will come from these groups that will grow and will grow fast, but there'll be others that grow slower. but trust the process, trust what it is that you're doing, throw all of your effort in it. And just going back to how I started this presentation, sometimes committing ourselves to an idea of making impact in our society and transforming it for the better is what gets us through even the worst days of what we go on in our private lives and in our everyday lives. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited with everything that happened today, and I look forward to when all of these ideas come from the incubation phase and we start practicing them on the ground. Thank you, WESA, Activate, again, GIZ, NYDA, and everybody. Yeah, sorry, I have kids who are getting antsy with me. But yeah, so thank you so very much. And I don't know, I want to say I'm proud, but you know what, let's leave that for later. This is amazing. I wish more programs like this had been available a lot earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sis Khomotso, as always, and in reflections within the chat group and across the WhatsApp groups that we have, all of us share the sentiments that we are so connected to what you say, we resonate with what you say, and feel inspired and moved by what you've shared. So thank you. And just a special thank you to you personally as an individual, taking the time out. I know it's not an easy role that you serve, and to be that liaison between such a fierce group of young people and a department that holds so much responsibility. We don't take it lightly, that, you know, the time you've invested is so meaningful to all the ambassadors, and we appreciate that you've dedicated that time to us. And thank you for those amazing insights. I just want to kind of just reflect on some of the things that you just said. You said the youth have a deep tenacity to implement change and transformation in our country. So we need to keep that drive alive. And change is not something that we can do in silos. It's something we need to do together. No matter how fast or slow it happens, it still matters, whatever efforts that we take as the change agents of this world. So yeah, we're thankful for your amazing insights, Khomotso, and we appreciate you know, how much of time you've invested in these young people and just in this program in itself. It's wonderful to have you. Just going off of that, you know, we're speaking about the kind of amazing opportunities that this connection with the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities has brought. I'd like to just move towards our closure by highlighting this amazing opportunity that the ambassadors have been granted, which is to participate as observers to the presidential meeting that's going to be held in Abuja, Nigeria. And a few of our ambassadors have already signed up for that. With the ambassadors are going to have the opportunity to listen in and watch in on the signing of the MOU. And this whole discussion is going to be based around strengthening youth relationships between South Africa and Nigeria and the continent at large. And that is a remarkable opportunity, and just shows and spotlights how incredible this connection that we have with the department is, and how it's flourishing now from this point. So this National Youth Dialogue is just the beginning for all of us. And in saying that, I just want to kind of recap on this amazing day that has been, team. It's been quite an astounding, remarkable day of presentations, of engagement. We had our environmental group come through and speak to us about some of the importance of waste management. Political group A spoke to us about the lack of economic reconstruction. Social group A spoke to us about South African women's access to mental health, mental and reproductive health resources
during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. It's been quite a remarkable and comprehensive discussion that's taken place. I'd like to also celebrate our colleagues from Beyond Influencer and the Sisterhood of the Traveling Magoa, and of course, our wonderful messages of activism that took place, and to you, Khomotso, as well, for your time that you spent sharing your message of support. It was a magic day. I'd just like to celebrate all the facilitators who held the space today. It is, you were speaking, Khomotso, about, wanting to express how proud you are. And I just want to echo that, it's a remarkable opportunity that we get to share this space with all of you as amazing, young, brilliant leaders in the space. The resilience you've shown throughout this year, throughout this day. It was a long haul, and you're all here to meet at this final moment of day one. So I'd like you all to just give yourselves a pat on the back and celebrate how far you've come in this moment and all the efforts it's taken to get to this point. Tomorrow we have a super exciting day ahead of us. We're going to have the health group come through, political group B, and social group B and C come through tomorrow. So we have some amazing conversations taking place. We're going to be joined by other fantastic leaders in the civil society space, and have that breakout session, guest speakers from the department, the Democratic Development Program, GIZ, our very own Dambisa, and we'll end off the day with amazing pledges from the ambassadors. Wow, what a day to look forward to tomorrow. Ambassadors, colleagues, guests who have joined us in the space, thank you for being here. And yeah, I'd like to close off the day in our usual and amazing fashion, as the change makers, the history, the world shakers, the history makers, the agents of change that you all are. I'd like to invite you all to open up your microphones, to post in the chat group, to open up your videos and say your last farewells for an amazing day that we have shared together. Thank you, everybody. I hope you feel proud of yourselves. So yeah, I invite you all to say your final closings.
Please.
Thanks, Nell. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow. Well done, ambassadors. Thanks, KG, Dambisa. Cheers, guys. Cindy, thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Even the ducks are saying goodbye.
Bye, everyone.